Good afternoon, LinkedIn. It says we are live and good to go. If you are just about joining us now, let us know that you're here. We have a chat function, so it will be lovely to know if you are watching us today. We are, as you can see, I'm not Kirsty and we're not Pete. They've both left you in the lurch today, Mike.
I'm afraid they have.
Yes,
I'm afraid they have, Rue. Yeah, they've gone. They've left me. They don't care about me. Actually, Kirsty's on holidays and Pete's on client site today.
Fantastic. Well, you've got them busy. You've got them busy. So look, welcome to the Mike Ames Show. As I said, I'm not Kirsty. I'm not Pete. But the subject we are covering today, which is going to be absolutely fascinating because we've been chatting through it for the last couple of days, is about de-skilling recruitment to boost profits and make hiring people easier. So shall I just give people a couple of minutes, because I know some of my team are coming into the show. Do you want to wait a couple of minutes or just get straight into it?
Oh, no, let's crack on.
Okay, we'll crack on. No problem at all. So first of all, when you and I were talking, I said to you, Mike, what do you mean by de-skilling recruitment? And you also talked about the division of labour in the post when you wrote it. So should we just talk about the de-skilling recruitment part first? What do you mean by that?
Okay. De-skilling means using tools, essentially. Okay. It's take it out of recruitment for a minute. If you're in the workshop, you use a tool that is electronic and it makes a much better job of a piece of wood, say, or if you're working on an engine, it enables you to do stuff you can't do. If you're working in the kitchen with a food processor, you can do things quicker and easier and to a better quality and more consistently. Yes. Well, in business, you can use tools to do exactly the same thing. They de-skill something. So somebody who's got less experience and less ability in some cases can still deliver a really great result. And it's something that we use all the time. You know, we use Excel spreadsheets where you could do that with pen and paper if you wanted to.
Yeah, but we did back in the day, Mike.
Oh yeah, back in the day. Yeah, we did back in the day, actually, Rue. Yeah, you're right. But you know, we use these tools to make things so much easier to get things done. And we all use them. I mean, you must use them in your business as well, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of people trying to sell us different tech tools all the time, but I don't think you're necessarily talking about that, are you?
No. Sure, software is a tool, right? And we imagine having to do things without email. It's a tool, you know, makes things happen quicker and easier. CRM, imagine having to do things without CRM. You were talking about using Job Adder, which is a really good product, but there's quite a few out there that you can use. I can't imagine trying to do my job without those kind of software products, because what they do, obviously, is they make it so that there's a consistent approach to something and it gets more done in less time. And there are tons and tons of software products out there which will help you. There are two downsides, two bear traps that you can fall into with a software product. The first one is that you don't use it fully. Yeah. So the salesman comes, sells you the dream, right? Yeah. And you think, oh, wow, this is great. Yeah. But what he doesn't tell you is you've got to do all this to make it work. I'll give you a classic example of that. Auto emailing, right? So you get this auto campaigns. Well, it's so simple, says the salesman. You buy this product and then it magically sends out emails. And when people do this, then this gets sent and then it gets a prompt for the salesman to ring them. But it's not set up properly. People don't buy into it. And the whole thing is just a massive white elephant. And you see that a lot in software products. The other bear trap around that is that in reality, it doesn't do what they say it does. Yeah. So even if you put the effort in, it doesn't do it. You know, like, again, using those auto mailers that you can get. There's the thing called the ISPs run a thing called an online reputation. Everybody has one. It's basically what the ISP.
I was only recently aware of this, actually. Yeah, I was only recently aware of this.
Okay, well, everybody's got one. The ISPs maintain it, right? And when you get off, if you're not doing a lot of emailing, when you start, you've got a really good reputation, so your emails get through. Then you start sending out loads of emails, right? And so for a bit, while your reputation is still high, these emails are getting through and it's great and the numbers are really good. And then sadly what happens, the ISPs catch up with you, your reputation tanks, and then most of your emails end up in junk and clutter and your results have dropped. But by then the salesman's got his money and he's legged it to the next person to sell the snake oil to. So I think you do have to be very, very careful with with software products, but when used properly, they're very good. And as someone that started their career in software, I'm a huge fan of IT and software products and apps. Totally.
So let's get back to this de-skilling the recruitment part. How does it, in a true life example, help you boost profits and help you hire people?
Okay, there's loads of examples really. I think I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll list out a few of these tools that you can use, and there are quite a few of them. And then we can look at one of them and to see how that would deliver better results, right? So one of the obvious tools is a thing called an ICP, an ideal client profile. If you leave it to your people to decide which targets to go for, which people to pursue, which clients to go for, then their judgment won't be the same as yours necessarily. It could be influenced by how easy it is to reach someone or how friendly they are when you talk to them, as opposed to how much money you can make from them, which is really the thing that you're interested in. So an ICP is a tool that you develop. You spend some time analyzing all these different potential clients that you could deal with and narrow it down to the ones where you make the most money. Then you look at the criteria which define them, and you split it into two: the criteria for the company and the criteria for the decision maker. It's called a persona. And so you can pretty much define that in such a way that you can actually score it out of 100. So the criteria will got weightings on. You get a prospect, you answer the questions, which are the criteria, according to this prospect that you've got. That gives you a number. If it's above 70, you go for it. Between 50 and 70, go for it. You've got nothing else. Below 50, not interested. So that's a very simple tool that you can develop centrally, create centrally, monitor it very easily. So you can say, well, okay, why are you pursuing that candidate then? Why are you producing that prospect? And they say, well, okay, this is the score. And if you don't agree with it, you say, well, that's not quite right, is it? Because he's not scored that many there and he's not scored that many there. So that's much lower. Shouldn't really pursue that. It just de-skills the process. It's very simple to do.
I just want to put you on the spot here for a second. It's hard to turn a client down. How do you, in a market like this, when you know there's going to be a correction at some point, turn a client down so that perhaps when you need them in the future, you can go back to them without them being offended? Because sometimes we have offended people, not willingly, but it is hard to turn clients down in this kind of market.
That's relatively easy. And if you want the answer to that, all you've got to do is look at builders. If you want a builder, if a builder is available now, they're not very good. And it doesn't matter what the market's doing.
It's so true.
Really good builders are busy. So you go to a really good builder, they don't say, yeah. I've invented the smoking bit, to add effect. Okay, I'll be around next Wednesday and make a start on it, really. And he comes, digs a few holes, then buggers off, and you don't see him again for 3 months. What a really good builder says is, I'd love to do that, be great, but I can't start it until July. And you wait, because you think, well, okay, I want you. You're available then. I'll wait. Now, in recruitment, we can't always wait. But if you use the same approach where you say, well, okay, I could love to start on that project, but our factory, our recruiters are full at the moment. If I took that on, I'd provide a lesser service for you. The service levels drop. I'm not prepared to do that. So I will respect 100% if you go somewhere else. But if you don't, I can start it a week next Thursday or something. If you can wait that long, I can start it then. And when I do it, I'll do a good job. I think it sends the right message out. I don't think anybody I've ever used that on has been offended. In fact, it's usually the opposite. Many people will wait and your standing goes up because obviously you're in demand. Obviously you're a professional person. You're not just going to, we can do that. We can do that. Yeah. The answer is yes. Now what's the question? Really? I mean, really? And you're managing your workload, which you have to do. You have to manage the workload. Get people to work on less vacancies so you make more money, not more vacancies so you make less money.
So what we're saying is identify what our ideal client looks like, identify the persona of that client, rate them in a sort of scorecarding system.
It's
then only work those roles where you really feel you can make.
You can do the same with vacancies. You can have an ideal vacancy profile. It's exactly the same. Well, obviously it's different, but it's a set of criteria and you score each vacancy against it and you work on the vacancies which come out with the biggest number. It's de-skilling the process. It's taking away the need for somebody to be experienced to know what to work on. The ICP tells you and the ideal vacancy profile tells you And then you can manage that as the manager, because you can say, well, okay, why are you working on that? Don't work on that one, work on that one. Or why are you pursuing that prospect? It's a de-skilling process. And
rather than trying to manage everything, you're just really focusing on the ones that
you can't do it.
Yeah.
Plus the fact, where we've implemented this, people actually welcome it. It's like, okay, well, I know what I'm doing now then. I've got to do that. Yeah, you've got to work on that. Yeah, because that's the deal. So another one, I know we've got some comments or questions coming in fairly soon, which we'll go to, but just one other quick one. Another one is campaigns, AIDA campaigns. We did AIDA a few episodes ago, so you can find that on the YouTube channel. But AIDA campaigns are developed centrally and usually takes some time to develop them. But once they're developed, anyone can use them to start a conversation, because you just follow the process and use the tools, use the content that you've been put in this campaign to get someone to take notice of you and start a conversation. And they're the ones when all of these things make more money, because you're focusing on things that generate revenue, of course. But campaigns are really good, because without that, people are floundering around and ringing people up and trying to get through and sending emails. It's like, really? I mean, no. So this is a really big thing, though. This de-tooling, de-skilling and using these tools is really good. One more, and then we'll go to questions, is content. Right? Content.
We were talking about that earlier. Yeah.
We'll come back to content in a minute, because I want to dig a little deeper into content. But it's something that most tools are developed centrally and then used much more widely in a distributed sense, so other people use them. But content is something you can develop centrally, and then other people can use it to get great results. I'll come back to that in a second.
Okay, so let's just talk about this division of labour. I have sort of ideas in my mind as to what that means, but in your view, what you're talking about, I think, is sort of dividing up the role of a 360 recruiter. So when I started, we had to do literally everything, from the business development, the resourcing, the whole shebang. And now, as we know, because when we're recruiting a lot of different sorts of roles in recruitment now, you're talking about splitting those roles up and really focus, making someone really good at one or two aspects of the role. Can you just talk about that a bit more?
In simple terms, recruitment is a very simple business. It's 5 boxes on a whiteboard. If you're explaining to someone how recruitment works, you need a whiteboard, 5 boxes on, and it's good. So you've got to win some clients, get some vacancies, find some candidates, make the placement, look after the client. I mean, that's it, really. Let's be honest.
I've always said it's not rocket science.
It isn't. It's just 5 boxes on a whiteboard with a few boxes underneath the support activities. That's pretty much it. So to find somebody that can do all of those things, though, all of those things is really hard. You know, in the decathlon and the pentathlon in the Olympics, as all-rounders, they're really good. And, crikey, I couldn't do any of those things. But you pick any of those disciplines and put the decathlon against someone that just does that, just does the discus, they're going to lose every time. The discus thrower will beat them, because it's what they do, it's what they focus on. So you're staffing your business in 360s normally with a bunch of people who are not quite as good as they would be if they just did that thing. That's your decision to do that. But it's worse than that, because if a good 360 leaves, and let's face it, anybody out there now is watching this show who owns their own recruitment firm probably was a good 360 recruiter, probably still is. You left because you suddenly dawned upon you that, wait a minute, I'm doing all of this stuff. I can win clients, get vacancies, I'll find candidates, I'll manage a team, I'll blah, blah, blah. I'll make this money, but I only keep 40% of that. 60% goes to the company, and they don't really do anything, or in their perception is, they don't really do anything. I'll leave and do this for myself. Why wouldn't I? That's what we all thought. I thought that. You thought that. Everyone thought that, right?
Yeah.
Well, people will do that when they work for you. That you look at that star performer across the desk now, on the phone, doing the business and everything. One day, you're looking at your future competition right there. I mean, you are looking at someone who's going to think one day, I can do this and keep all the money. Whether they can or whether they can't is irrelevant. They go. Big chunk of the revenue goes with them.
Yeah.
Goes out the door. Then you have to replace that to stand still. Right. And I was talking to a potential new client this morning, came on one of our masterclasses, and he said that he hired someone really early on who came, he didn't know it, but this girl came from a factory model, but she was selling the dream, and he hired her, but she could only do one thing, which was account management. That's all she could do. She couldn't do anything else. And so it crashed and burned. She didn't earn a single penny the time that she was with him.
Mm.
and he had to get rid of her in the end, which was quite painful. And he said, I didn't realize, I thought she could do everything, and she couldn't. So I said, well, that's what you need in your business. You need it so that if someone leaves, they're
Yeah.
not really a threat to you. They go,
Mm.
but that's okay. But the revenue doesn't go with them. You lose somebody, you lose a function. Now, if you combine, division of labor, so you get people doing one thing, say you get somebody who's in charge of winning new clients, right? You give them the right tools. So you develop some AIDA campaigns to start dialogues.
Yeah.
You give them a relationship pipeline, which is it's a way of converting a prospect into a client. Basically, there's a structure to it. You give them that and you train them in it, and you make them really, really good at it. Then they will be much more effective than a 360 that only really cares about looking for work when they haven't got any. They don't care otherwise. They just have requirements.
I mean, I like your approach. I've always believed that you should work to someone's strengths, not try to be patching up their weaknesses all the time. But what about clients who might be watching the show, or candidates, or anyone watching the show thinking, hang on a minute, but when there's a correction in the market, I just resource, suddenly I can't business develop because I've never been taught that skill. What happens then?
Well, that's the very point. That is the very point, because in the market now, even everybody that says they're 360, they're probably not. But I could walk out my front door right now and fall over 2 requirements. It's like, because relatively speaking, it's easy to get vacancies right now.
Yes, absolutely.
And so you're not really 360 if you get the vacancies. You're certainly not 360 if you're managing an account and the vacancies are coming to you. Sometime on email, or they ring in sometimes, hey, can you help us with this? So when that goes, well, who's going to bring in the work then? How's that going to happen? Well, the person that's going to bring in the work is someone that's been trained and properly equipped and is measured and rewarded to do just that.
Yeah.
And in a small business, most of the people I deal with are small businesses. They're not big companies.
Yeah.
In a small business, you just need one really good work winner. And the chances are, if you own it, it should be you. And you have a little team around you to make that process easy. Yeah. So you can do it in a lot less time. And it's the tools that do that.
So really, you're protecting your business. You're protecting your business by doing it. Yeah. You're making it easier to hire staff. And the team are enjoying the opportunity more because they're doing something they love, rather than thinking, I've got to be good at everything. They
stay longer and they're better at it normally. The other thing is, in a market like this, one of the things that tends to suffer very badly is client care. I don't mean talking to clients when there's a piece of work. I mean what you do with them when there is no work. It just goes out the window. Way too busy for that, right? It's very common. Well, who do you think is going to remember you when times get a little darker?
Yeah,
those clients you looked after and went to see and spoke to, or those clients you just ignored completely when there was no work. I'll tell you, the agencies they're going to go for the agencies that looked after them. Well, if you've got someone in your business whose job it is to do client care, then that client care continues regardless of the state of the market. It's very much a way to protect your business, for sure. It's a secure business if you do that.
So in terms of the things that you think, I'm reading on LinkedIn a bit of doom and gloom, already in recession, market's going to have a big correction. Just be interested to hear what your predictions are, having run and sold 2 very successful businesses in recruitment already, and having gone through this sort of algorithm of recruitment that we have.
Up and down like a fiddler's elbow, isn't it, really? I think there will be a correction. I mean, as you know, because we were talking about it earlier, we covered this to a certain extent in last week's show. Worth watching if you haven't watched it. But I think there will be a downturn. Certainly all the signs, the economic signs that the economists look for, all point to a recession, actually. I don't think there'll be a recession. I think there'll be a downturn. I think you can see it already in some sectors where people are saying, well, that project that we were going to have, which meant we needed these people, we're probably going to sit on that for a bit, so we don't need them now. That kind of language is creeping in certain sectors, in others not so much. And so the idea now is to switch your focus to client care, massively so. What is your standing with each of your clients? So somebody in your organization needs to do that. Where do you stand? Are we at the top of the pile when it comes to suppliers or agencies? Are we in the middle, or are we at the bottom? And also to make sure that you have a really good grasp on your cash, on your money. to make sure that you're as profitable, as efficient as you possibly can be. Those two things together, add them together, it means you're a lot more secure. And again, part of that, the thing that tools do is make you more productive. That's all what through history, from the times that the Luddites smashed up the looms because the machine looms were so much more productive than those guys on a weaving thing in their attic. It's always been the case, always been the way, it always will be. You put tools in place, not only does it de-skill it, makes things happen quicker and therefore cheaper. And so it's now's the time to start and do that. 100%.
No, thank you for that. Now, Laura's got an interesting question, and I'm just seeing if I can pull it in. I'm struggling a little bit. I don't know if I can read it to you, but I'm clicking.
Oh, I can bring in Laura. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, thank you. Would love to know how you bonus in a factory model.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Okay, yeah. Well, remuneration in general, Laura, maybe I could just talk about that for a second. It's a very complex subject. The implementation is relatively easy, actually, but everybody has a role within a factory. You've got to do something. So therefore, there's an output for what you do. So resources, their output is candidates. Level 2 resources, their output is qualified candidates. If you're a recruiter, so you're actually handling vacancies and making placements, your output is placements and therefore money. If you're in the new business side, your output is new clients. If you're an account manager, it's vacancies. So you can measure someone's ability, because that's half of it. How do you know if someone's doing a good, bad, or indifferent job? And then some of those people you can pin a value on, which is very simple, like resources. It's just a monetary value. They've got no control on what they work over at all. They're told what to work on. And so you can't really reward someone for doing more than somebody else, because look at the draw what they get. So they just get a fixed amount, which is dead easy to do. In terms of people that handle the vacancy, they didn't bring it in. They're not finding the candidate. So they can't have 100% of the revenue.
So you're saying take away some of that fee value from them.
They're going to get a share of it. So, and you decide whether you go a third, which some people do. I don't really agree with those percentages, but so a third people that bring in the client, a third that's kind of working the vacancy, and a third that's bringing the candidate. But you can work it out really. So long as when you add all of that together, it's less than 40% of the overall fee that you bring in, you're going to be just fine. It works out. I know that's quite a high level answer, but it's relatively easy to do that once you look at the actual numbers themselves. Is the answer.
But it's nice to have that figure actually, because I've not really been aware of that before. Making sure it's no more than 40% of the fee value that you're giving away is what you just said.
It used to be 33%, but it's gone up. I mean, some people pay up to 50%, but I just think that's a very short-term decision. And when there's less money around, that's going to hurt a little bit. But each their own.
Another question here, and again, you might have to click on this from Gavin. If you are dumbing down the work, do you never have a motivation issue with your staff?
Great question, really. Two things about that. First of all, if somebody's really, really good at something, they like doing it normally. So it's not dumbing down at all. You're going to be awesome at this job. And any job in recruitment has got a lot to it. Even resources, the ability to find really good people is difficult, right? So there's a lot to learn, a lot to experience. But also, because there's so many different roles, there's a career path. It's cool. There is a career path from starting at the bottom as a resourcer or an administrator, even a sales administrator, right at the very bottom, working your way up to the level that you want to be, and then staying there if that's what you want to do. But it's found, the research tells us it's the exact opposite though. It is around, here's a journey, these are the steps, this is what you need to do, this is what you get when you reach each of those steps, and people stay longer because of it.
Yeah. And building those networks right now is just so very, very important, isn't it? Particularly for resources in this current market. And as you said before, really having that stickability with your clients and really looking after them is going to help you future-proof your business, bearing in mind what we all think will happen moving forward. So what would be your top tip on this subject for today? Okay,
well, I'll tell you what, I'll very quickly summarize, and then I'll hit you with the top tip, because it'll follow on, if it makes sense, if I do that right. So very briefly to summarize, if you get on the 360 model, that's fine. and they can work, but it's hard and it's risky, and 3 steps forward, 2 steps backwards in many cases, particularly if you're a small business. Bigger businesses doesn't affect them in the same way. Smaller businesses very much so. So my advice is division of labor, and then think about the ways in which you can do things centrally as a tool and then roll it out. Develop centrally, implement throughout the whole business. And your idea is to make it quicker, cheaper, better quality, more consistent, or more convenient for the people that use it. If you can do that, which the best software products do, of course, but if you can do that, then you are gradually making yourself more and more productive. And as we said last week, if you measure profit per person in your business, that's a great measure of how productive you are and what's happening to your business. You're becoming less productive or more productive. Now, leading on to that, if you wanted to begin to think about a factory model, first of all, you don't have to swap over from 360 to factory. You don't need to do that. We've got someone coming on the show, I hope, who's been through this transition, and he started with 100% 360, and I think he's about 90% factory now. And he basically said, well, look, if you want to be 360, that's fine, stay that way. But if you want to move over into the factory, then let's figure out what role you need to do, and then you can start doing that. And gradually, as the 360s left, he didn't replace them. All that's happened is he's doubled his profits, and I'm hoping he's going to come on the show and say that. That would be groovy, wouldn't it? But honestly, the effect on his business has been transitional. So if you focus on transition from where you are now to where you want to be, do it on over a gradual period of time, it's no problem at all. So the first step is to figure out really what the strengths and weaknesses are of your team. So audit your team and see who's good at what. Well, what are they good at and what they're not good at? Because that'll kind of tell you then where they should be. It's a different challenge then to get them to do that. That's something else. But as a first step, which is what that is, then my view is do that audit and understand not only what they're good at and what they're not good at, but also what they want to do. What would you like to be doing more of? What would you like to do less of? Because if you do that, then ultimately what happens is you're beginning that process, that transition process that can take 18 months to 2 years. I mean, it can take that long.
And it sort of goes back to what you said. It's easier to hire people if they're doing what they love. It's easier to hire someone if they're not doing the full 360, because where at the beginning you said no one isn't going to ever be amazing at that role. There's just too many components to it. And
it's easy to hire trainees as well, because we're just going to hire and train you in this. We're just going to do this, really. I'm a big believer in hiring at the bottom and working up. I've always thought that, really. And I've brought people in to positions, but there was a specific position to fill, and I hadn't got anyone able to fill it, so I would bring someone in. But I think the idea that you bring people in and grow them as a person is an easy way to do it, because you're not saying, well, I'm going to teach you how to do these 5 things you've got to be brilliant at, these 5 boxes. It's going to make you awesome at this. In fact, I'm going to make you awesome at this part of this first. And then when you can do that, I'm going to get you to do this, and so on and so forth. It's so much easier to do that.
I love it. So who have you got on next week? What is happening next week?
Yeah. Well, we have another special guest next week. We're thrilled, in fact, to have Sean Lalkira on with us, and she's going to come and talk about what she does to attract candidates. She uses content to attract candidates. If you look at her LinkedIn profile, she produces some great posts, some really good posts, and because of that, she gets approached all the time by potential candidates, even before they've gone out to the market and put themselves with loads of other agencies. She's going to come and talk to us and tell us exactly how she does that. So I'm very excited about that. Got to be honest with you.
I'll definitely be watching that show. Well, thank you. It's been lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's been fabulous, and thank you for stepping in. It's been an absolute pleasure. I knew it would be. I'm not even sure I'm going to invite Kirsty and Pete back. I don't know. Maybe we can have a chat off air about you coming on the show permanently. The Mike and Ruth show. There's something there, isn't there? That's good. No, thank you very much. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
We'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.